Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Tanner's Game Museum, and this time I'm playing another game, Super Mario 64. But it's gonna be a bit different than last time. This time I want to tie it into the channel a bit more. So, while I play, I'm just gonna casually play and talk about what Super Mario 64 means to the industry as a whole. So we're just going to play on a new file here. We're gonna choose Mario B. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this is the first time she was referred to as Peach in a game in the US, which is pretty interesting. I believe she was always referred to as Peach in Japan. I think they called her Princess Toadstool here in the US until this game. So Super Mario 64 came out at a time where not very many people had played 3D games before, so Super Mario 64 was really a big deal, and for a lot of people it was the first 3D polygonal game that they ever played. Personally, I had played other games like Mario spin-offs like Mario Party and Mario Kart 64 before I played this, and that's a little odd because for most people this is the first N64 game they played. It's usually something like this or Ocarina of Time. But for me, this came a little bit later, and I had known about the others, but I was very young when I played this, and I had no idea Super Mario 64 existed. I actually rented it somewhere and just fell in love with the game. It's such a great game. It's my favorite, actually. Earthbound comes in a close second, and I know a lot of people might assume that Earthbound is my favorite, but nope, Super Mario 64 is my favorite game, and there are a lot of reasons for that. And I won't get into that here. I will talk about that in a later video, possibly, but so yeah, let's go ahead and get inside the castle. I've been messing around out here a little bit, and really a big deal with Super Mario 64 was the exploration, that you could run around and do whatever you wanted. It didn't necessarily have to align with the goal you were looking for, because even if you could move, backwards in a level in the previous 2D platformers in the Mario series, there really wasn't too much to do other than a few little secrets here and there. So this was just a whole new way of playing games, and it was a really big deal. So you can see here they introduced Lakitu as a cameraman. And I remember in the player's guide, and I have no idea if this is canon, probably isn't, but they say he's like a cameraman for a news station in the Mushroom Kingdom. And I always thought that was really cool. I thought that it was a great way to explain the concept of a 3D camera to somebody who's not familiar with 3D games. And that was most of the world then, so this is a really cool idea, and I really like it. So the whole idea behind Lakitu being the cameraman is that you're seeing the world, you're seeing the game through Lakitu's camera. You have a Mario view here, which zooms in a bit closer, but I find the game a whole lot more playable with Lakitu view. Mario view is kind of terrible, if I'm being honest. And you can also zoom in and view the world like this. And that was also a big deal because it gave you a full 3D view of the world without having to physically move there. Peach's castle, I think, makes a very convincing castle, especially for an N64 game. Of course, there aren't a whole lot of things that you would have in an actual castle, like, I don't know, a dining room, or even like bedrooms or things like that, but the architecture, I feel, is very interesting, and I feel that it's pretty realistic, so this was a neat little thing to add in the game, and it makes for a very neat hub world. I know Mario games are known for their hub worlds, like Super Mario World, where you had the hub world that corresponded to the levels. So wherever you were on the overworld, it kind of looked like the level you were going into. But Peach's Castle was a very interesting way to handle the issue of a hub world. Instead of having something like a level select, or just moving from one level to the next, you actually had a hub world that you could explore, and in itself it was a very interesting place to explore. So, in case you're not familiar with the game, which most people are, but in case you have not played Super Mario 64 and don't have any experience with it, the whole idea is that Bowser has yet again kidnapped Peach, and he has taken the stars from the castle, which kind of powered everything. So he's created worlds inside the paintings, and for some reason there are rooms with just a painting in it. He's created these worlds inside the paintings and given the stars to his minions, and sometimes they're just scattered in random locations. So you have 7 stars in each painting, and I believe there are 13 worlds? Plus secret worlds. I could be wrong on that, but I believe there are 13. So to access the worlds, you just jump right inside the painting. And you have this select menu, and at first it only shows you the stars that you've gotten. I mean, you can get further stars earlier on, I'll actually demonstrate that. I will get one of the last stars. It might be the last star in the course, but I'll get one of the last stars right off the bat. So once you pound the stake all the way in, and I cannot get it. Alright. So once you pound this all the way in the ground, the chain chomp will destroy the cage that is holding a star. And once you get that, that will be added to your total count of stars, and there are 120 total in the game. So if you get a star that was intended for later, it will show up later on the list, and you can kind of get a little idea of how many stars there are. And of course, this is if you're brand new to the game and you don't know that there are 7 in each course. There are 6 main stars that have some kind of objective, and there is one 100 coin star. So once you collect 100 coins in the level, it will give you a star. Now this probably isn't news to most people watching, because, you know, a lot of people have played this game, but just in case you haven't, I want to give you some general information about the game. Anyway, one of the main aspects of Super Mario 64 that really caught the attention of the industry and gamers was the fact that you had these different worlds, and you had multiple objectives in each world, so you didn't really have to make a level that just has one objective, because you would probably have a lot of levels, and that would take up a lot of space on the cartridge. I believe that was a primary factor in why they decided to do this. But it's also interesting that you have these big open areas, and there aren't a ton of them, but you have multiple things to do there, and it really makes it interesting. That also influenced game design in countless games, and one specifically that I know is GoldenEye, because you had these different missions, but you also had different objectives to do, like a spy. But it was also, I believe it was directly said by one of the developers that was a big influence on GoldenEye. Rare's games in general, like Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, that kind of thing, they were heavily influenced by Super Mario 64. They were 3D platformers, and they had multiple objectives in these huge areas, and they were big for the N64. And you can see this kind of design in games that aren't 3D platformers as well. Really, Super Mario 64 is one of the most influential games out there. So this is the first main star that you're supposed to get, and it's fighting King Bob-omb. Now, one of the things that always confused me when I was younger is I always assumed you were supposed to throw him off, because that made the most sense to me. But you're not actually supposed to throw him off, you just throw him on the ground here. If you do throw him off, he will actually jump right back up. And I'm not sure if you have to throw him off again. Well, I know you do, but I'm not sure if you have to. That resets the boss, pretty much. It gets a bit harder to attack him every time you throw him, and that just gradually increases the difficulty here. Super Mario 64 was just a huge deal because it transferred a series that was known for its 2D games to 3D, and really this period in time in gaming was kind of a transition period for a lot of franchises, because there were a lot of franchises that were established in 2D, and of course developers wanted to jump right onto the 3D train. So to ensure that they get a wide audience, they would use something that was established. And Super Mario 64 is one of the best examples of this, because Mario was one of the biggest gaming icons out there, and people had really high expectations. And I know there were doubts with a lot of series that they could be transferred over to 3D very well, but Super Mario 64 really did it well. In fact, it even influenced games outside of Mario. It influenced games as a whole. Before, there was an aspect of exploration, you know. It was an overhead game, 2D worlds, they explored, and they were kind of laid out meticulously. So people were worried about how that would transfer over to 3D. If you had a game like this that was set behind the character, how would it work? And Nintendo again pulled that off really well, because you still had the exploration, you still had the dungeons that were pretty much the same idea as they had been in the past. World exploration was maintained exactly as it was before. There were games in the early 3D era that were handled poorly, and that makes sense because, you know, developers hadn't really done this before. So the fact that these games were transferred over so well in the very early days of 3D is so impressive, and I'm really impressed that Nintendo was able to do this. And I don't doubt Nintendo. They have made mistakes, but most of the time they do really well. They really handled the 3D era very well. Nowadays, most games are 3D, and of course the technology is like leaps and bounds ahead of what it was. This was such a big deal, and you can see that through, reactions to the consoles when they were announced. You can see that through reactions to games like Doom and Wolfenstein, where it was very primitive 3D, but people were so excited to see games that were, wow, I'm really doing bad. Games that were changing, games that you could explore around in a 3D environment, because that just hadn't been seen before. A lot of games in the early 3D era were meant for exploration, so you could explore these wide open 3D environments. Because players were really itching for that. They really wanted to be able to explore a 3D environment. And there were early attempts at 3D. I wouldn't say attempts, I would say they successfully did it. Things like, again, Doom, Wolfenstein, things like Star Fox on consoles. Very, very early 3D, much earlier than say this, because this was a big deal. You had fully textured polygonal environments, as opposed to something like Star Fox that had, very flat polygons, low poly counts. And you can see even there are some early lighting effects in Super Mario 64. They're a little hard to pick up on, but you can kind of see how, for example, the box is darker on the bottom there, and as you turn the camera around it gets darker on the sides. One thing that was common with platformers, and even with 2D platformers, was that the levels were themed. You had grass world to start out, you had fire, you had ice, you had water, all of these different kind of elements, and those return in Super Mario 64. And you can see that here with the ice or snow world, and there are really multiples of each type. Maybe Lethal Lava Land only has one. I mean, there was a Bowser world there that was lava themed, but you can see the themes return, and that, I believe, will always be a part of games. They want to vary the environments because, for one, that adds a change of scenery. You're not bored with seeing the same thing. A lot of games have been criticized for being, just trying to look realistic and having very similar looking environments. Very similar color schemes. Kind of just ugly, not because of the graphical technology, because the graphics themselves are very impressive, but it's the art styles. And I really believe that an art style makes a game, because you have games that are very old today that look great, and they look better than a whole lot of brand new games. Wind Waker is a good example. Even the GameCube version of that game holds up really well. And of course they had the HD version, which added, different lighting and things like that. And Nintendo's good with that, because they generally make games that don't focus so much on being super realistic, but they make games that look very good, even if they're of a more cartoony quality. So obviously Super Mario 64 has aged quite a bit, but it's still very, very playable, and it's still a very fun game. You can see its influence in the new Mario games like Super Mario Odyssey, which is kind of a direct sequel to Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. I would really like to cover Odyssey on the channel and show where it got its roots and how it's refined aspects of the Mario formula. Specifically aspects from this game, because you had Sunshine as the sequel, and that refined aspects of 64, but Odyssey refined aspects of both, and I believe it did a really great job, and I got a whole lot of Mario 64 vibes from that game. I think the communities behind games really say a lot about the longevity of them. You can still see like little additions and mods and hacks of Super Mario 64 today, like complete, almost total conversions. I wouldn't say total conversions, but huge level packs and things like that. And it's really impressive. And I really think you can tell the quality of a game through that. Because fan communities, they really define the lifespan of a game. And I think to have a big fan community, the game has to be very good in the first place. So the games with the long-lasting communities are generally very good. One of my favorite communities, and a community that I am a part of, is the Earthbound community. And they're still going strong, they still do things. There's projects going on, really awesome projects. Like, there's some recent Kickstarter projects that are just great, and I've made sure to back those. because you know, Earthbound is a special game, and you can tell again through its fan base. Its fan base really cares, and they want to do things for it still. They want to keep the game alive, and they want to make it appealing to new fans, because I mean, what's a game if you can't enjoy it? And I think that goes for a lot of things in entertainment. And I respect all game publishers. I respect all game developers, because you know, it takes a lot goes into a game, and if it's not just a cash grab that had very little effort, I respect that. And I like to think that my interests personally are varied as far as games go, because I'm not really a fan of sticking to just one thing and not trying anything else. I believe you have to try something to know if you really like it. That's why I never really understood the whole console wars stuff, and never really participated in that, because I think all game developers deserve praise for what they do. And even though I'm a huge Nintendo fan, and Nintendo has always been a big part of my life, it will always be something special to me, I recognize and I enjoy games by all kinds of developers. I do think competition between game developers is healthy. I believe that competition between console developers is healthy. Platforms, you know, I think that it's good to have competition, but I also believe that I think all game developers really build off one another's ideas, and not that they're taking ideas, but I think they all need each other, and I think it's important to give everyone a chance. And I know that is a bit off topic, but I just want to talk about that for a bit, because Super Mario 64 again has reached so many different people, and I think it's influenced so many different developers. So let's talk about what is different about Super Mario 64 as opposed to the other Mario games in the franchise. For one, it's not 2D, you're not locked on a single plane, but there have been a lot more Mario games after Super Mario 64. One of the main things is, and I think you can kind of split Mario games into different types. You know, you have your side-scrolling 2D platformers, and they still make those with the new Super Mario Bros. Series. And you have the mixture of the 3D style and the 2D style with things like Galaxy and 3D Land, 3D World. And then you have the 3D platformers with Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Odyssey. So 64 was the origin of the 3D platformer line, and was also a huge contributor to the mixture line, which kind of mixes both the 3D and the 2D. I think all types of Mario games, even the spin-offs, because the spin-offs are a huge deal, I think all types of Mario games are great. I think it's one of the biggest and best series in gaming, and I think it deserves the praise that it gets. There is a reason that Mario is Nintendo's mascot, and I think most people nowadays have played a Mario game, and that says a lot. There's something about the simplicity of Mario games that I think appeals to people. You know, I'm not doing anything too crazy, the stories are simple, almost like fairy tales. They have this long-lasting appeal that I think will go on for years and years and years. And that's one of the things I enjoy about Mario, is it's not too heavy. You know, I have a lot of games that are very serious. And sometimes it's nice to get away from that and just play a Mario game. And that's one of the reasons I love Nintendo, because Nintendo games are generally simple, just fun games, family-friendly, and it doesn't matter how old you are or what experience you have, you can always find a way to enjoy a Nintendo game. I always forget the order of the chest here. I believe this is right. Yep. As many times as I played this game, you would think I would remember it. I get a little distracted while I'm talking, and I've probably played terribly throughout this and haven't even noticed it, but I will notice it while I'm editing. But I suppose you guys don't come to the channel just to watch gameplay, so this is what I have to do. I've always loved this room. It's very surreal, kind of a strange atmosphere to it with the different colored windows. These gameplay videos, which I probably won't do very often, they're a little odd, I know. They're odd from what is also on the channel, you know, my typical scripted videos. But I want to give this a shot, and I think it could be interesting. I mostly just ramble about different things with gaming and console development and game development and things like that, but I think it might be interesting, and I don't know, I want to get your opinion on this. So, you guys as an audience, just let me know what you think. If it's bad, let me know. I know this is different, and I don't know, I'll have to decide if I want to keep doing this, but I enjoy talking about things without a set script, and I thought you guys might like it too. So recently I deviated from the typical schedule. I've been having some issues keeping up with the channel schedule, and I wanted to get a video out to you guys and kind of get things back on track. So I thought a good thing to do to get it back on track was to give this a shot again, because last time I did it with Mario Kart 8 with my friends, and the first time was Super Mario Maker. Mario games tend to be a trend with this, and that was never intentional. It was just, for some reason, I always picked a Mario game. But your normal content will be coming up again very soon. I will have one out on Friday for sure. So yeah, whether or not I do these unscripted gameplay videos, again, really depends on the feedback I get. And I might do them every once in a while when I just feel like playing a game and rambling like this. So yeah, after this boss fight, I think we will wrap up the video. I've really appreciated you guys watching. I've really appreciated the people who have watched any of my videos. It really means a lot to me. Bowser is very menacing in this game. I don't know if that's just me or other people, but he seems a whole lot more menacing in this game than he does in others. Now, Bowser's kind of goofy character. He's not really threatening. But in this game, for some reason, I always found him a bit more threatening than in others. I don't know what it is. Maybe the way he appears, and that's of course due to the limitations of the console, but maybe it's that, maybe it's his laugh. I really don't know. I don't know, if you share that sentiment, let me know, because I've never really talked about it before. So that'll wrap up this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's different, and I don't know if I'll do this again. I might, and you know, probably I will at some point, but you guys will be getting normal content for a while after this. So if you do like this, please let me know. If you don't like it, also let me know. Let me know what I can improve on. Let me know if you want to see more of this, maybe in a different way, maybe without my rambling so much. Maybe you want to see it with my friends. Regardless, I always appreciate your feedback, and you can contact me through the comments or through my Twitter page, which I will link on the screen. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.